You already feel it, not in a headline, not in a study. You feel it in the conversations that leave you drained, in the looks people give when you try to be honest, in the silence after you say something real and watch someone twist it into something it never was. You feel it in your chest, that tightening, that quiet exhaustion of navigating a world that seems to be getting harder to trust. And you've probably told yourself it's just the people around you, that you've been unlucky, that things will settle, but they won't. Because what you're feeling is not bad luck. What you're feeling is the result of something much deeper, much older, and much more intentional than most people will ever stop long enough to understand. This is not a video about other people. It never was. This is about why the world feels the way it feels. And more importantly, what that means for you. Let's go back, not far, just far enough. There was a time, not so long ago, when a person's character was built slowly, when a child who acted selfishly faced pushback, when someone who lied suffered real consequences, when community meant accountability, not just shared geography. You couldn't disappear into a screen. You couldn't reinvent yourself by deleting an account. Your behavior had weight, it had memory, it followed you. And that pressure, as uncomfortable as it was, shaped people. It created friction. And friction creates character. That world is mostly gone now. And in its place, something else has grown. Something that looks like freedom but feels like emptiness. Something that looks like confidence but breaks the moment you push back. Something that looks like strength but is really just noise. This shift didn't happen overnight. It crept in gradually, quietly, through every app designed to reward attention over substance, through every culture that started celebrating performance over depth, through every generation told to want more, expect more, demand more, without ever being taught how to earn it in silence. We built a world optimized for speed, and speed is a beautiful thing when you're ready for it. But when you give speed to someone who hasn't yet learned patience, they mistake urgency for importance. They mistake reaction for thought. They mistake volume for truth. Think about the average day for a young person right now. They wake up and the first thing they touch is a device. Before they've had a single thought that belongs to them, they've already consumed dozens of other people's thoughts, opinions, performances, and curated lives. Before their own mind has had a chance to settle into itself, it's already being pulled in 17 directions. And that happens every morning, every afternoon, every night, day after day after day. What does that do to a person over time? It teaches them that their own thoughts aren't enough. That silence is uncomfortable. That stillness is wasted time. It teaches them to look outward for identity, for value, for confirmation that they exist and that they matter. And when that external validation becomes the only thing holding you together, you become desperate for it. You become fragile. You become dangerous. Not dangerous with weapons. Dangerous with words. Dangerous in relationships. Dangerous in the quiet, slow way that poisons everything around you without ever being visible enough to name. This is how ordinary people become difficult to love, not because they're evil, not because they chose it, but because no one ever taught them how to sit with themselves. No one ever made space for them to feel something painful without immediately escaping it. Every uncomfortable emotion got numbed. Every difficult conversation got avoided. Every moment of self-reflection got replaced with stimulation, distraction, entertainment. And slowly, without realizing it, they forgot how to go inward. They forgot what their own discomfort was trying to tell them. They forgot that every emotion you refuse to feel doesn't disappear. It transforms. It becomes the tension in your voice, the defensiveness in your posture, the need to control every room you walk into, the inability to accept that someone else might be right. That's not a moral failure. It's an emotional one. And emotional failures are quiet. They don't announce themselves. They just accumulate. Now here's where it gets harder to say and harder to hear. If you're watching this, there's a part of this that lives in you too. Maybe not all of it. Maybe not in the obvious ways. But somewhere, in some relationship, in some pattern you've noticed and then pushed aside, there's a place where you have avoided your own reflection, where you have chosen the easier story over the honest one, where you have blamed the situation or the other person rather than asking what your role was. Everyone has that place. The question is whether you have the courage to look at it. Most people don't. And this is the real divide. Not between toxic people and good people. Not between the broken and the healthy. The real divide is between those who are willing to feel what's uncomfortable and those who aren't. between those who are willing to stay in the room with their own truth and those who bolt the moment it gets difficult. That willingness, that simple, quiet willingness to not run, is what separates someone who grows from someone who stays stuck and starts dragging others down with them. This is what no one tells you about discipline. Most people think discipline is about waking up early, about grinding when you don't feel like it, about doing more. But the deepest form of discipline isn't doing, it's sitting. It's staying. It's looking at the version of yourself that you're not proud of and refusing to pretend it isn't there. That takes more strength than any workout, any hustle, any achievement you can post online. Because achievements are visible. That inner work is invisible. And in a world that only rewards what can be seen, invisible work feels pointless. It feels slow. It feels like nothing is changing. But it is. It always is. You've probably experienced this already. Not the toxic behavior in others, but the pull toward it in yourself. The moment in an argument where you could have stayed calm but chose to escalate. The moment where someone needed honesty from you but you gave them what they wanted instead. The moment where you compared your life to someone else's highlight reel and let it hollow you out for the rest of the day. Those moments aren't accidents. They're patterns, and patterns have origins. You didn't arrive here without a journey. Something shaped you. The environment you grew up in. The relationships that formed you, the things you were praised for, and the things you were punished for. Some of what shaped you was healthy. Some of it wasn't. And the parts that weren't, the parts that taught you to protect yourself by controlling others, or to seek approval by performing constantly, or to avoid pain by numbing out, those parts didn't leave just because you grew older. They got quieter. But they're still there, running programs in the background of your life, influencing choices you think you're making freely. This is why self-awareness isn't a luxury. It's not a trend. It's survival. In a world moving this fast, in a culture this loud, in relationships this complex, the person who knows themselves has an advantage no platform can give them. They cannot be easily manipulated. They cannot be easily destabilized. They cannot be convinced that someone else's chaos is their responsibility. They move differently. They choose differently. And other people can feel the difference even when they can't name it. Now let's talk about you, not in theory, in practice. You are living in a specific moment in your life right now. And if you're being honest, there are parts of that life where you've been coasting, where you've been choosing comfort over growth, where you've been putting something off because starting it makes you face the possibility that you might not be as capable as you need to be. That fear is not weakness. That fear is human. But what you do with it, that's where your character lies. Because the person who scrolls for 4 hours a day isn't lazy by nature. They're avoiding something. The person who starts things and never finishes them isn't undisciplined at their core. They're protecting themselves from the feeling of failing at something they actually care about. The person who compares themselves to everyone around them isn't insecure without reason. They were taught somewhere along the way that their worth was relative. That it was about position, about ranking, about being ahead. And those lessons, those quiet, absorbed, never questioned lessons, are the architecture of the life you're building right now. Every day you don't examine them as another day, you build on a foundation that was never fully yours. You want to talk about what's really stealing your time. It's not the phone. It's the thought you're hiding from that the phone helps you avoid. It's not the procrastination. It's the fear underneath the procrastination that says if you really tried and it still didn't work, then what would that mean? It's not the comparison. It's the old wound that makes comparison feel necessary, that makes you feel like you need external evidence to confirm your own worth. The phone is just a door. The question is what you're trying not to walk through. And here is the part that most motivational content won't tell you because it's not comfortable and it doesn't make you feel immediately good. Ready? You are not behind. But you are late. Late to yourself. Late to the version of your life that could exist if you stopped performing for an audience that doesn't determine your value and started building something in private, in silence, in the unglamorous, unwitnessed hours that no one ever applauds. Those hours are where real people are made. Not the curated version, not the persona, the real person, the one who shows up on a Tuesday with no one watching and does the work anyway. Not because of motivation, not because they feel like it, because they made a decision. A quiet, private, irreversible decision that who they're becoming matters more than how they look in the process. That decision changes everything. It changes how you spend your mornings. It changes who you allow access to your energy. It changes what you're willing to endure and what you're finally willing to walk away from. It changes your relationship with time itself. Because time stops feeling like something that's passing and starts feeling like something you're using. There are people in your life right now who drain you, who twist your words, who make you feel smaller after every interaction. You've probably been trying to understand them, to fix them, to find the right way to reach them. Stop. Not because they don't matter, but because understanding someone's behavior doesn't obligate you to absorb it. You can have compassion for why someone is the way they are, and still protect yourself from what they do. Those are not contradictory. They are both necessary. The people who are the hardest to be around are usually the ones who have suffered the most and grown the least from it. Pain without reflection doesn't produce wisdom. It produces armor. And people wrapped in armor don't need more argument. They don't need more explanation. They need distance, or they need time, or they need a consequence that forces them to finally look at themselves. What they don't need is more of your energy poured into convincing them to see what they're not yet willing to see. Your clarity is your protection, not your anger, not your argument. Your calm, grounded, unshakable clarity. When you know who you are, other people's chaos stops being a threat and starts being information. Information that tells you who to stay close to and who to step back from. Information that tells you what this conversation needs and what it will never have. That clarity doesn't come from winning arguments. It comes from doing the inner work consistently, privately, unglamorously, over a long period of time. And here is what that inner work looks like in real life. It looks like choosing not to respond to the message that made you furious, not forever, just for an hour. It looks like sitting with the discomfort of not knowing how something will turn out without immediately reaching for a distraction. It looks like finishing the thing you started even after the initial excitement faded and the resistance set in. It looks like asking yourself, in the middle of a spiral, what this feeling is actually about. Not performing the answer, actually sitting with the question. This is not dramatic work. It's not photogenic. No one will applaud it. But it compounds, like interest, like strength, like trust. The person who does this work every day for 6 months is unrecognizable to the person who doesn't. Not because they're louder, because they're clearer, because they've stopped being moved by things that used to move them, because they've built something internally that external conditions can no longer reach. That is the only kind of power that lasts, and you are capable of it, right now. Not after you figure things out, not after the circumstances change, not when the timing is better or the conditions are right. Now, with what you have, from where you are. The world outside is not going to slow down. The noise is not going to get quieter. The culture is not going to suddenly reward depth and patience and invisible growth. None of that is coming. So you have a choice, a real one, the only one that actually matters. You can wait for the conditions to be perfect, or you can decide that who you're becoming is more important than how the moment feels. Most people wait, and the waiting becomes the story of their life. Don't let that be your story. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not too far behind. You are exactly where the decision needs to happen. And the decision is simple, not easy. Simple. Stop running from the version of yourself that needs work. Stop feeding the noise that helps you avoid it. Start showing up quietly, consistently, without needing it to look impressive. Do that every day, without quitting, and watch what you become.